acting director.
It's ridiculous.
All right, as soon as we get the audio visual set up.
It must have got water along.
Most of the buildings back
Two of the elevators.
Yeah. All right, while Alan works on getting that up, we can go ahead and call the meeting to order. A couple of things administratively. First, I want to recognize and thank Michael and Jimmy and Byron for throwing their names back into the hopper and for their reappointment by council for another term. Also want to thanks to commission members for all the hoops and jumping through after the rescheduling emails going back and forth and getting enough people here to follow up and have an effective meeting for this month after the City Hall inadvertent shutdown. So that being said, first item on the agenda is really our meeting minutes from December, at the end of the year. And I think everyone got those. We've had now an extra week to look at those. If nobody has any questions or concerns or changes to those or corrections to those, I'd entertain a motion to adopt those into the record.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second.
Motion is seconded. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, we'll put that in the record book. And then we'll jump right into the agenda. We have a short official agenda that we'll talk about, and then some additional new commissioner items that I have and some others may have as well. So we'll start with part of our exercise for those from the public that are here is we're going through the downtown master plan that was done several years ago and doing an update review of each section as we go along. We're now into a second or a section of it that deals with transportation improvements in the downtown area. And we've asked Ken Putnam to come and give us sort of an update on a wide variety of things as to where we might be, and we may have some questions for you as well.
Actually,
Sasha's going to start. A little tag team. All right.
Sasha, I can zoom out if you need to.
All right. I just thought yeah, it's a little blurry, sorry. I just thought we would go through this matrix that I emailed out to everybody really quickly on strategy 2. I don't feel compelled to go through every line with you all, especially since Ken is here. Just maybe hitting some highlights, this strategy 2 in the downtown master plan, just to remind people, is about parking and transportation issues. And one of the big strategies that the city did look at was kind of having some kind of management entity that would manage both private and public lots. And the city actually issued an RFP, got proposals for that, really looked hard at that years ago, and it just seemed really expensive. It didn't seem like it was going to work. So that's kind of on a back burner. The city, in terms of bike lanes, the city has continued to install bike lanes throughout downtown as possible. I know Barb Mee came in this last year and talked to you all about bike corrals. So things are moving forward and on that front with bicycles. The 2C on the second page, ADA, the Downtown Association, did a walkability study and is looking at updating that. And the city has that's been really helpful to the city. They've worked, I think, closely with Public Works and have really installed more sidewalks or made some improvements where the Downtown Association found problems. Doesn't mean it's perfect or all completely done, but significant progress has been made. Let me see. And I think Ken will talk more about parking. As we all know, 51 Biltmore did open in the last couple of years, and then the AT&T lot, the city has leased that and made parts of that available to the public, and also with monthly spaces as well. And I think that really are the highlights of that. And the city continues to look at parking issues. One issue that our transportation committee looked at was car sharing in downtown, and as you know, we now have that U-Haul car sharing program. And I think two cars downtown, one in UNCA.
Do we have any sense, and maybe Ken can answer this, do we have any sense on the successes or failures or issues associated with that? I mean, it's an independent business.
Right.
I mean, I see some people using
Ken
it.
could answer that.
Dane's not here, I know he's used it a few times.
I can give you an update.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions about that? I know I'm being really brief and somewhat vague, but
So if we have any comments, we did some in the kids.
that's fine too. But if there's any specific questions with what I gave you all.
About the wayfinding for parking, because it doesn't seem that there's any response to that, or
I can't remember exactly when wayfinding happened in terms of the downtown master plan. There is wayfinding on those parking signs, and there is some, I don't know if Ken looks like he has something.
Identification of the lots have been improved.
It has.
Just a little hard to hear here. If you can use your microphones, please. Sorry.
2E3, no movement on that. New parking for the Grove Arcade.
I'll defer to Ken on that.
It's 2E, item 3, planning for adding new parking areas for the Grove Arcade, which has been a promise since that building was renovated in 2002.
We'll talk about that when I stand up.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and stand up?
Yeah.
stand up, kid.
Come on, Renee.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit first. I think that, as you all know, that there was an attempt years ago to put a parking garage up in that area, and that effort was not successful. What we've tried to do in the Grove Arcade area is we did lease roughly 45 spaces from AT&T lot, and that's been a successful partnership. That was a 5-year lease. We're probably in the 3rd year of that, maybe the 4th year of that. We are also working behind the scenes. We haven't officially contacted them yet, but we're trying to see if we can even expand that parking lot more, because when you look at their parking lot there, it still doesn't look like they need even what they're keeping. So we're trying to begin conversations there.
Percentage of that is monthly and what's short-term?
But we started out, that's a good question. We actually started out with all 45 spaces being available for the public on an hourly basis, just like when you go to a meter.
Right.
But we were not getting any money. We were losing money every month. And so what we did when Hotel Indigo came on board, they had a parking need. So we worked with them. So we have an actual lease with them for about 10 or so of those spaces. And then we had demand even from the tenants of the Grove Arcade, where they would like to have some monthly parking opportunities. So we expanded to that. So it's probably now, there's only about 10 to 12 spaces that are truly the hourly spaces right now. But even on a regular daily basis, those do not fill up on a regular,
Do we know within do we know within the arcade itself, the limited parking is underneath, is that primarily just the residents?
Only
and
residents.
And office, or?
Just very few residents and very few, there's not 2 spaces per unit, and there is not 1 space per commercial space. Because
Okay.
I was a merchant there for many years.
Gotcha.
Ken, to use, for the public to use that AT&T, there used to be a gate there, right, as you cross
Yeah.
the sidewalk?
Yeah, all that's been moved back, and our area is actually, their area is totally fenced in, so ours is partially fenced in, so to speak. And then we have a pay-by-space machine there. The other one that we have is, what we call the handy park lot, straight across from the US Cellular Center.
Right.
And when we tore down the buildings and now there's a wall and everything, part of that project, we repaved the surface parking area. So we have something like 23 to 25 parking spaces with a pay-by-space machine that is hardly ever used. Two cars a day.
You say AT&T lot's been available for 2 years now?
We're probably in our 4th year.
I had no idea that. I walk and drive past that every day. I had no idea. That might be part of the issue, is that it's not clear.
Yeah, that could be. We do have, we actually added on to the official wayfinding signing, and so we have those signs in place at that entrance and exit, but we could probably do better trying to reach out for folks.
Do those spaces show up on the app?
I believe they do.
Okay.
I'd have to
I didn't know
check
either.
that.
The ones above the Andy Park, I just would always assume, as being someone who used to live in Nashville for a long time, that you were going to get towed away from that lot. I didn't have any idea either.
Now, during special events, like for SoCon and some of the others, we'll kind of shut that lot down and use it for other purposes. But like today, for example, we probably won't see more than 2 or 3 cars in it.
Yeah, I think that's just the.
Are most of the spaces in the restriped handy lot, or handy park, handicap spaces?
No.
Oh, they aren't, okay.
No.
I mean, that was my assumption.
Now, we have done that on special events, though. You're
Okay.
exactly right. We would just put handicaps in there.
You have an individual there monitoring that, right?
Right. Now, there's 2 parts to the handy park. There's the upper one and the.
That's right, either side of the access to
The
the alley.
upper one, we have mainly leased those spaces out to the folks that live in the Battery Park Hotel.
Okay, would it make sense, since the public may not be aware of those additional public parking spaces, to maybe reach out to people that have employees and business owners that might be in the more established decks, where people know that there's public parking, and get them to use this underused deck, this underused surface parking lot at AT&T, so that it's full, and then open up spaces on the decks? I mean, it's surprising to me that it's not used, but it's not surprising because I don't think many people know that it's an option, especially those of us that have been here for 20 years that always assumed it was AT&T and didn't notice any difference. The fence is still right along the sidewalk.
Oh, yes.
So just driving by, it doesn't look any different.
That's true. Yeah, we'll look into some different options on that. Sure we will.
Do you-
We'd like to get more people in there.
What's the difference between monthly users versus hourly users at, say, a 70% rate? Do you make more money at 70% occupancy versus subscription?
I don't have that information, but we do make more money on an hourly basis, obviously, especially if there's a lot of turnover. When you have that situation, wherever that break point is, the monthly accounts, we're really losing money on them because you're getting a break, whatever that rate may be.
Have you reached out to like the Indigo and have you reached out to the Indigo and let them know that because they don't have a lot of parking?
Oh, they're the ones, they have probably a third of those spaces. They're
Right.
paying us.
So they're telling their
But not
customers.
their employees, but their actual hotel guests, because that runs out of parking, their deck runs out all the time.
Right,
Right.
yeah. Well, and now that I know that, the Wall Street deck is closed a lot, it's full. So we could just tell people as a merchant, we could tell our customers to go park just a block away at the AT&T lot or
Mhm.
even right there at the Andy Park.
Well, and maybe the Indigo discussion may be a similar discussion you end up having with the Park Hyatt as well, right? Place, whatever, as they build, because they have a limited number of parking spaces in their overall plans
Right.
for the number of units it has.
So you have plans to talk with AT&T about expanding that parking
Yes,
lot?
yes, we do.
And then maybe removing the fence and making it look a little more visible as part of the conversation?
We can have that part of the conversation, we sure can.
merchant campaign, because it's just dawning on me that we could be telling our customers to park there. Either of our businesses really are, it's close enough in the summer especially.
And the one at Andy Park is very convenient to much of that.
Well, Malaprops is right, I mean,
Well, civic center events, and there's a lot of.
when people are new to our businesses, they will say, where's the best place to park? So we have our standard answer.
My question is more about passport parking. I mean, as everybody continues to evolve to using apps on their smartphone, and the data that you presented on those reports shows that we have almost 20,000 users in the Asheville area. How can passport parking evolve to show where available parking is? Not just pay for the parking that you find, but is that even possible?
Well, that's, I don't know if they've gone in that direction at that company. It's not really moved into that arena yet. And the sense that we tried several years ago to use, we'll say, a parking locator, proved to be very, very expensive. So I'm not saying that technology won't get there. It just has to get out there.
That was probably first generation. That's why I'm wondering, are we now in a, technology is evolving pretty quickly now. Are we in a second generation mode where the cost isn't as prohibitive?
But the hardest thing on that, Adrian, is having something physically in the parking space itself that they can detect if there's a car there or not. And that's still the part that's holding everything back. But we continue to look for opportunities on those regards as well.
But the decks have systems that know what the occupancy is. I mean, is there any way to tie into that so that I know that people drive around and they see the Wall Street deck is full, and then at least
That's
they'll.
right there.
Yeah.
You
Well-
just drove past it.
Yeah.
That's why what we've done, at the 51 Biltmore Garage, we've got the sign that says how many spaces are available. We've added that to the Wall Street.
Right.
The next one we're trying to do it to is a Civic Center deck. That was a little bit more problematic because of being able to locate the sign, because we have to have it away from the deck. We have to have it up at the intersection of Vanderbilt and Haywood.
Right.
Coming from the Basilica direction, it's fairly easy. We can put it where everybody can see it. Coming the other direction with all the trees and then the big kiosks for the library makes it very challenging. If we were to go out there today, we could say, oh, here looks like a good spot, but by the time we get it in and the leaves come out, it may be blocked. But we're working towards trying to get that sign in place this year.
Because the primary access to that one is off of Haywood and down the side.
Yes, it is. And what we would do on that one,
Instead of
we've already
offering-
got the sign design, it would be a little bit more sophisticated rather than the ones that you see at Biltmore or Wall Street. It may say that the parking lot's full, but then it will direct you to another place to go. So what we might do is have trailblazing signs. Some of these would be permanently installed. It would lead you around back to Rankin to get to the Rankin Avenue garage.
Or AT&T, because it's close enough.
Yes, so we've already got the cost on the signs. They would be right at $50,000 to do that one. And then when we get that one done, we do the same thing for Rankin.
Because what strikes me as interesting is you look at the yearly average occupancy rates between Rankin and the Civic. There's a 10 or 11% difference between these two, with Civic Center being less. Is it because it's harder to find the entrance to, as opposed to both Rankin and the Civic Center being accessed off Rankin as a primary entrance in terms of signage, spill over into it? I'm not sure why the Civic Center lags behind, other than it's just harder to find how to get into it.
It's also perceived to be further away, which is really not.
Yeah, they're adjacent to each other. Yeah.
There's also a perception that there's a safety or a feeling of discomfort with it. We've seen that from patrons at the Civic Center. Drives you by it, it's hard to keep clean because it's stairwell. That's not really safe.
And I think that's fair to say, to add on to what Jan is saying, I think the older garages that we have, back when they were built, I don't think that the visibility and all these things were really the number one issues. I think we've gone great leaps and bounds when you look at 51 Biltmore. It's more attractive, you feel safer, the lighting is better. We did change the lighting in Civic Center to LEDs, and that was with a grant with Duke Power, and that's held. The biggest thing we got going on there now is the elevators. They're 40 years old, and we had an incident just the other day where a caregiver was trapped in the elevator and couldn't get to the person that they got to give the care to. And that was a little problematic. So we are getting estimates to see about replacing it. And I think what's going to have to happen is the Civic Center one, especially, maybe the others, I don't know, but the Civic Center, we're going to have to gut everything and start over. But as soon as those bids come in, we're going to move forward with that. We're not going to delay that project. So that'll be happening hopefully this year.
The elevator replacement.
And the monthly in Civic is still cheaper than Rankin. It's Wall Street, Rankin, Civic, correct?
Right.
In terms of price.
And the other thing that's interesting too, we've now bounced back to the pre-recession days of when the recession hit, all our monthlies went away virtually. And we struggled there for a few years, but all the monthlies are back. We have waiting lists at every garage right now. We were able to absorb the folks, not all of them, but about 100 of the folks from BB&T, when their garage went away, we absorbed them into Biltmore Avenue garage, especially during the construction phase. Now, it's our understanding when a new hotel comes up with their parking, it's virtually going to be parking for that hotel and whatever happens at Battery.
BB&T Tower.
BB&T.
That's my understanding.
But it won't be like general public, like us coming in just to spend an hour or so in town.
And as we have a new police chief coming on board and our current interim chief, Wade, there are a numerous number of police-only parking spaces that were assigned in Rankin, and those are not used. They were originally used for roll call, pretty much. Roll call's been moved central,
Okay.
and they are not used at all. There's probably 9 spaces on the main level. And so I think we need to either have those available. If they're going to use them for roll call, that's great. That doesn't affect the business people that park there because roll call's done by the time they're coming into
Sure.
town. But those are dead spaces all day long, and that's lost revenue to you, it's lost revenue, and it's the inability to park.
So I think that's a good suggestion. I'll be glad to follow through on that.
Yeah, whether it's a complete transfer back to public or whether it's a limited for an aggregate block.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They're dead spaces 24 hours a day.
Just give every downtown patrol unit member a parking card for whatever garages are available. I mean, Civic Center, Rankin, and Wall
Well, I think
Street.
they want them strategically close to where they can get out really.
Well, we don't even have a full staff, so that's a good idea. If that card, we don't have the employees in place.
The
and
most
those
I
aren't
ever
dead
parked there is 3 cars. I mean, and then there's like 9 places.
Original thing, so I think that's a
Yeah,
great
I
thing.
can follow through on that.
I can tell you the majority of the police cars we see are parked on Haywood in the morning, and they're not in the garage.
Right.
Ken, I'm interested to hear what the plans are for the South Slope. Yesterday at the State of Downtown Luncheon, we talked about the growth that's emerging down there and continues to increase at a dramatic rate. In fact, we're getting ready to hear about a project down there. And I'm continuing to hear from business owners down there that they're concerned about their employees' ability to park in the area. I know the city's gone ahead and striped off on-street parking and put 2-hour signs up. Meters not yet, but many of the startup businesses that are down there and businesses that have been down there for over a decade are concerned that they're going to be pushed out or have to deal with parking for their workers that is not available. So what are the parking department's plans to address that growth?
Okay, before I answer that, can I just make sure that every one of you get a copy of this little 3-page summary? And what I wanted to share with you is that we will keep you updated on this. This will be like the base, and then we'll update it. For example, on our financial stability, so to speak, we finished 2014 out when we have reserves of almost $600,000. That's typically lower than I like to see the number because we still have to plan for structured maintenance every 5 to 7 years. But the thing is, we brought our numbers down when we financed the 51 Biltmore garage. We put a down payment of $3 million down, so that's why the numbers have come down. But this is strong growth to see it, start to bounce back. So I just want to make sure you saw that. And the other thing is, as far as the occupancy for the on-street parking, what we're doing now is every 2 years, we're having a consultant come in and update those numbers. So the graph that you have, you see a baseline in 2010, we did it again in 2013. We're already putting plans in place to do it in 2015 in October. That's the other thing, is we're doing it during the month of October, because I think we would all agree that if there was any month that would be the highest month in Asheville, it's probably October.
What area does that include?
As far as the on-street parking, it's a very sophisticated process that they do, but they actually are driving these roads every hour from 10 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. And through process, through recognizing license tags, they're gathering this data. And it's every on-street parking space. It's covering it all.
Is it the entire central business
Yes,
district?
the whole central business district, that's correct.
That's a pretty large landmass, and some of that really isn't necessarily revitalized yet, when you look at
But
what.
that's true, no, that's true. So, we have 700 plus parking meters in the city, and some parking meters probably don't get hardly any money in a day. So, yeah, that's
So
what
is
it's
this just where parking meters are?
No, it's all of it, all of the on-street parking. So, but it does cover all the parking meters for sure.
But your point, Adrian, is because it also includes areas that have very low occupancy. It skews the number somewhat.
Can I clarify that? You said it's striped spaces, or it's just where parking is available on street, but not necessarily striped as well, or not? We're not counting those areas, right?
Well, no, that's true. It's probably primarily just the metered spaces. But it would encompass to some degree if we have like an hour parking on this block.
Right.
Because we know how many spaces should be there, cars are there or not, so it is counting them all.
And permitted on-street as well, permitted spaces.
Yes. And the permitted program that we have is a program that we can make adjustments to it anytime we need to. For example, the only reason we're doing it is because we're not getting the maximum use of, say, meter parking. And so we're trying to take care of another need. If someone works downtown and they want to park with a permit on the street, they can do that and walk to work. So that's most of our accounts that we have like that are done by people that are working downtown.
Ken, is that fund balance from a single year, 2013, from that?
Well, no, what that fund balance is, that's how much, in a sense, that's how much money we have in the bank after everything's been paid for.
For the year 2013?
Well, the year that ended 2014.
Okay, because half to three quarters of that is going to go to your elevator.
Yes, you're right.
Is that elevator required? Is it an accessibility requirement, or is it just go?
Yes.
It is.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I don't really want to put you on the spot with this question, but I think it's important because I intend fully to bring forward this parking issue and council retreat, because I think we need to be starting that discussion. But I would think that the Kinley Warren information that we got several years ago when we were dealing with this deck over here that didn't happen in front of the Civic Center at the park, we acquired the information on Broadway during the Kinley Warren study. Would the next step be, because I'm hearing what Adrian's saying, we're going to see growth in the South Slope. I'm not sure what that growth is going to do or look like, but we already have people that are saying what are our employees going to be doing and watching it build out. We know that's going to be a pinch spot. But we also have still got a problem in the Grove Arcade area. And I would think we're going to have to, probably next step would be to commission another Kinley Warren of that report of that type to see what the growth looks like coming up, where we need parking and where we need parking today, because the trends have changed in the downtown. The Biltmore Avenue area has been fairly satisfied with our public-private partnership with the allot, but then we're seeing growth over on the other side, the Broadway side. And then we're seeing Haywood Street's always got a lot of activity. So I would hate to even hazard a guess at where, if we were going to build a deck, where it would need to be.
Right. And you're not putting me on the spot. I appreciate you asking that question, because I think what we've got with Kimley Horn and what they started with us back in 2007, what we've done is we've built on that study every time we've looked at updates. And a lot of it is like a computer model that's based on our GIS. So to do just exactly what you just suggested would be fairly easy for us to negotiate a contract with Kimley Horn to come in and add to what we already have. We don't have to start all over. And we can make assumptions and we can look at it. Because remember, when they divided our CBD into several different zones. And so now we have the capability, though, of crossing from one zone to the other, whereas before, when they first built it, you could only look at the zone, and it really wasn't giving a true picture. Like, for example, Adrian might have a business on the edge of one zone and Rebecca on the other, but the two weren't talking to each other. And now we have that ability. So that is fairly simple for us to kind of pull the plug on. And we try to build in the parking budget every year, reserve monies to be able to take on a study if we need to pull the trigger on a study.
Yeah, a
Make
couple,
that 2010 study available to us.
Absolutely. There's a PDF of it, it sure is.
Is there a way to look at proposed development, like all the different projects that are currently proposed and the way that they're meeting parking needs or not, and include that in this
Yes,
study
absolutely.
to look forward, not just like at the present, but to look ahead at what's coming and the needs that are, because I just see growth in the demand, and I think that's just going to continue to grow.
I agree.
yeah, as a follow-up to that, Rebecca, and before we get back to some other specific questions on the South Slope area, is one of the things that and we'll get to this in a little bit, one of the things I wanted to add to our annual report to council, recommendations of what we're going to discuss in this coming year, or this year now. As we go through this follow-up to the downtown master plan, the next incremental step typically in a municipality is taking the broader master plan for the downtown boundaries and breaking that into sub-areas, and now updating sub-areas, or as some people look at quadrants. So the northwest quadrant, which is the Grove area, South Slope as the southwest, and start to look at trends in those specific areas for a wide variety of things, whether it's street improvements and sidewalks, or it's parking, or it's infrastructure tied back to the municipal districts that we've created as to where the priorities might be. And I think bringing it back to the South Slope, I think that was also part of the conversation that went on in the mobility workshop from several months ago. And I don't know what findings came out of that. There were a lot of people there from the general public that at the end of it put, tabs of different things that were important to them, did the little iPad survey. And I don't know if there are any results that have come out of that that have been made public of that one-day Saturday workshop.
No.
Oh, yes, no.
Well,
Maybe.
it's on the website.
Oh, okay.
It's on the website. But as far as at the next public hearing, some of that information is going to be, broadcast.
Presented.
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's going to be in March.
Okay, so the other follow-up on the South Slope, of course, we've had discussions here because they came through, which was the county and their redevelopment of the HHS site, and a portion of that, at least when they came to us, was a fairly substantial parking structure, but also an indication from them is that two things. One, they didn't know when they were going forward with it,
Right.
and secondly, that they weren't necessarily, I think when they represented us, they weren't necessarily in agreement that it would be a shared structure after hours for public access. That was a question mark. Have you had any conversations with anyone from the county relative to the South Slope and this planning effort?
I have a little information on that.
Oh, sorry.
I think that the county commissioners are considering next Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever they meet, about that project and whether it would go forward. It came here.
Do you think it's on their agenda for general discussion?
I do. And I think they're trying to decide whether they keep it there and go forward right there. And you've all seen the plan, and it had 600 spaces or something. It was quite a large deck.
Right.
I think about using we can ask the county if they decide to go forward about discussions about using those spaces after hours. I think they need to reserve some. I think that's what their worry is for their own nighttime needs. But it's a lot of spaces to never, ever have available for the public. And I think over time, even if the initial reaction was, whoa, we're not going to make these available to the public, I think over time, if they do over here, it works just fine. So that's all I'm saying. So,
Well, the reason I ask is should the county go forward with it or not go forward or delay it a little bit, then the conversation would be, as the city looks at specific planning issues for the South Slope, maybe there's a better location for a parking structure that maybe a shared structure of some kind, either operationally or from an economic standpoint, or, sell their property and utilize that for county services somewhere else, whatever. It just seems to be part of a bigger discussion than to work sort of in an isolationist manner and move forward. So I only throw it out there just to continue to have conversations with them as we look forward at South Slope.
And the way I understand it too, yes, they have a parking need down there that's driving the need for the parking garage, but more than that, they have a space need. So this parking garage is also going to have office space into it, so it's going to be a shared use parking garage right off the bat. And so I think what they're trying to decide is even when they get all that done, is that going to satisfy their space need? Because from what I understand now, they even have people that have offices in the hall in that existing Sears building, so they're really pushed for space.
Yeah, part of it's still a redevelopment of that building as well as the annex building and the parking structure. And the parking structure on the South Slope, clearly from my standpoint, makes sense if it's part of a bigger, if it's strategically in the right location, it's more of an intermodal center that close proximity to the bus system that's there and the routes that it serves, as well as future businesses and growth in that area. So.
One of the things that we're trying to do too, we've got our eye on the South Slope, is the idea that, let's say that we're looking for partnerships that may exist now or may be in the future to try to see what we do, even if it's a lease kind of option. Maybe someone comes in to build whatever they need and they put in more than enough parking, and then we take all of the excess parking and make it available to the public. Those kind of options. We're looking for those because we've had a good relationship with AT&T. We've also got a good relationship with Mount Zion Church right across the street, for some employee parking. So we've got an established record on that. So we would look for those. I think the South Slope in general is where would be the best place. If you try to find the center of the South Slope and put the parking garage there so everybody kind of goes out from that standpoint, or do you kind of do, if the county follows through with their garage, do we dare put one across the street? Because, they control that surface lot right beside the transit center as well, because that was part of the old Sears building. When they get theirs done, they may not need that lot anymore. So is that an opportunity for the city to try to work with them to get that lot?
And that's where I think the conversation with them is, we know there's a need on their behalf, and we know they have an opportunity in front of them. But, should they wait a little bit while we do this more specific strategic plan for the South, or look at other areas, and then maybe there's a partnership there or a public-private partnership that occurs that makes it work better. So
and then the other thing with the South Slope in general, it's all downhill. It's slopes, right? So if we get too far down, are we penalizing ourselves by not allowing people to walk up the hill or those kinds of things too? The other thing that we have to bear in mind is on the on-street segments that we have is always when you're trying to retrofit something, there's competition between on-street parking and bike lanes. Most of the time you can't have both. And so then it becomes an issue of which should come first. And so that's a challenge that we all have to be mindful of as we do future planning. But we're open and we're trying to look for these other opportunities wherever we can.
Well, we have growth in that area. We have the county doing stuff, the city's looking at things. We've talked about, improvements to Cox and to Ashland in terms of what the profiles of those are. You've got the Greenways extension coming up into town with pathways and bikeways and bikes on the street. There's just a lot of issues that need to be looked at from a coordinated standpoint.
Right.
So it's really just being open to that planning effort.
The Hilton Garden and BB, the new building at the old TK, is any of that public parking?
They were building the deck for their needs, and I don't think that they anticipate having a lot of excess space. It's about, I want to say it's like 300 spaces.
I mean, whenever they presented, I asked that question.
Yeah.
The answer was no. Is there any way to strengthen our requirements or ordinances for new development for this? Because I think it's just getting a little bit ridiculous.
Well, it's an issue that we can look at. Again, I've identified it as, through the various emails, it's something that we need to look at as whether there is a need for it or whether there are options for it, and how we make that recommendation if we do going forward to modify the ordinances, and then it works its way up the chain. So, and a lot of it comes out of, because it's going to be different in different areas.
Right.
The northeast quadrant, which has a lot of non-taxable land in it, but a lot of that are churches and well as county land and city land. And there's not a lot of demand in the northeast quadrant.
There's not a lot of new development either, though.
That's right.
So.
And we're seeing more movement in the Eagle Market area, and all we have there is the PAC deck, which is
So it's like where there's natural movement to develop, there's also need.
Yeah.
And when the development comes in and it's not meeting the need because it's not required, then
Right.
it just creates this self-perpetuating issue.
Ken, why is a law firm parking provided here?
Is it on your
It's
chart?
called billboard.
The billboard.
Biltmore.
Biltmore Garage, it's on there.
It's the Biltmore Avenue Garage.
Biltmore Garage.
That's the one.
It's not on there. It's not ours, yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, the service parking lot on Cherry off of Flint, I think it's DOT property. It's gravel,
It is,
it's
uh-huh.
under the radar.
Mhm.
Is there any look at how to kind of legitimize that and put meters on it? And, because I see cars that kind of live there.
Where is
So I-
this? Where?
It's
Next to 240.
service.
The
it's-
Cherry
it's-
Street lot.
Yeah, just.
Don't take that. Where do you think all my people
I know they're going to storm you.
What I'm saying is, I think some people just store their cars there.
That is DOT excess property. It is not right of way, but when the I-240 was constructed and so forth, it was pieces of property that the DOT had to buy all because you couldn't just leave that as private property. And we do have an agreement with the DOT that we can utilize that property because that's how we got permission to put the skateboard park in. And so it was all wrapped in the same thing. And there's some parking below the skateboard park, and there's this parking above. What's difficult about the parking above, the one you were referring to, is it's a very long and thin piece. And one of the things, if we, even we as a city body, were to go in and try to, we'll say, improve it, make it look like a nice parking lot, we have to follow the UDO requirements with the landscaping and everything. And I'm afraid that we would probably lose a lot more parking than we would gain. But that's the short answer on that. On the part that's below it that's been paved, we are looking at trying to clean that area up a little bit. And we're even working with Alan on that a little bit, but we'll still have to do the same thing about the landscaping requirements and all. But somewhere along the line, I can't tell you how or when it all got paved. And now it's just like a wide open parking lot too. But I think a lot of folks from Moog park there during the day.
Well, and that brings us back to that discussion the other day is speeding up the on-street parking on Broadway as you cross under I-240 and extend on-street parking on Broadway in front of the Moog building. And you heard that?
Yes.
At the meeting. Seems like a no-brainer.
We have to get DOT on board, but we're working on that.
On the Biltmore deck, it looks like occupancy rates are fairly low there, as far as 66%.
Well, yeah, but we're very pleased being the second year in.
But is that because of the hotel arrangement with them leasing the majority of the spaces, which on a day-to-day basis would be empty?
Well, that's part of it, Adrian. Now, we have 400 spaces in that parking garage. 115 of them are reserved for the hotel. 35 of those spaces, they're paying a premium monthly charge on, so they have exclusive use on 24/7. The others, we overbook. So like, for example, the sign would include those numbers in there about the spaces being available, and so the public can go in and use them. And so far, we haven't run into any kind of issue with their needs versus our needs. So those spaces are available for the public. But what we're seeing is, we're seeing each month that we go on, we're just seeing that garage being used more and more, which is a good thing.
When Eagle Market Street Development Corporation first started with the new building, they did not incorporate enough parking in it. I know that there was an effort being made at the time to talk to us about reserving spaces in that garage, which is a big concern to me because I feel like that garage is growing all the time. Did they do that, or have we made any provisions with that?
We've never been officially approached about that.
I would regret seeing those spaces left lost for a business parking.
We do try to, well, we have to, the way we financed our garage, we can only have so many that are leased out versus what's available for the public, but we haven't crossed that threshold yet, but we do watch that.
Because I was told during the process that they feel like that they can have their overflow park in the county's garage, they can work out something. I hope they stay with that, because
Yes.
that's valuable parking for businesses down on that street.
Yes, it is. Now, the county garage is starting to have some new capacity issues because the sheriff's department has now moved back over here.
Right.
And I don't know for sure, we're trying to chase this, but we understand that they may even take the whole 7th floor and put in the interior gate that means that only the sheriff's department could have access to it. I don't know if that's true or not, but they're starting to see more issues over there themselves. But it's still, I think that the garage is virtually empty at night.
Yeah, again, I think they're seeing modifications to their original projections, given the fact that they're bringing more satellite office, county office uses into the central core and congregating those.
But their business model is really different than the city's business model. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that our garages and our whole parking fund is self-sustaining. And so far, we are. The county, virtually it's all their own people.
Yeah, it's all subsidized, but
Ken, to the point of the sustainability, how do you determine what the market rate is? Are we at market? I know private parking is going up in downtown right now. I pay for it monthly, and it's getting expensive. So is that set in any way, or do we do studies?
That's a very good question, and one of the things that, we're kind of governed by state law, and that's where the enterprise fund is. And when you read that, what it basically says is that we are supposed to be self-sustaining in that we need to get enough money to make sure our expenses are covered. And then on top of that, we're allowed to take care of, debt
service.
and that sort of thing. And then the law currently says that if there's any leftover money from that, we'll say that kind of aspect, then it can be used for a solid public purpose. Now, the danger we have to be sure we don't fall into, and unfortunately, the city of Chicago fell into a trap where they signed a 75-year lease with a private vendor that came in to regulate all the parking, and they got a lot of money. Well, 3 years into the agreement, their money's gone, and they're having all kinds of issues. So we can't just, in one sense, whatever the market can bear is what we should charge. We've got to balance it about how much money that we need to offset our expenses.
So it's cyclical in the nature of that. To get your question, to increase the rates are tied to the city's ability to take on more debt to build a new structure, which also increases the operations and maintenance fund requirements. So it's all tied together.
But the other thing that I think is very important, because a lot of you folks at this table helped us come up with this method or this model, is the fact that whatever we charge on the street, we want it to be cheaper in the garage.
Right.
And we do it two ways. We do it by a rate per hour differential, but also the first hour being free.
And I also wondered if there has to be the same rate across town, if it's a buck all across town, or if it can be $1.50 on Market Street where everybody wants to park currently. And
Those methods are being tested now in other places in the United States. We're watching that. There's the logic on that is it's driven. What you're trying to do is create turnover. And so theoretically out there, every time you see 7 parking spaces, you want to see 1 empty, and then you get into that space. And so some communities are doing it that way by changing the cost. Now, does that cost change on a daily basis, or does that cost just by a geographical area, like around the Grove Arcade as an example? It might be a higher rate than we'll say on the South Slope today, that kind of thing. So those things I think we're all open to, but it would take a group effort for us to really land on something solid on that. But the technology is there to do that.
And I don't want to keep you here all day, but the last thing I want to say is if we build something up on the top of docks or down at the bottom, Jimmy and I want a gondola or to bring the trolley back so we can get back to the hill.
Vernacular.
It's wild.
There's some good zip line companies in town.
So that gets you there.
Actually, you'll be able to slide down Cox Avenue in May.
Well, I'm going to hang around here if you don't mind. I want to hear the next presentation.
I have 2 more questions.
Wait.
So why not strategically identify property on the south slope that fits needs for visibility and proximity for parking? If it's not used for parking, it's a good place for a park. But what does it take for the city to say, you know what, things are happening down there, let's bite off a piece for the public for the future, and let's figure out what it's used for later, but let's identify a piece. So how do we get to that step?
Well,
Without driving the price up by that's the key.
right.
Yeah.
Part of that answer is the fact that, as you know, we are now working in what we call 5-year chunks. The CIP that we have is laid out for 5 years. It's funded every year, but so we as staff, we have to concentrate on that. And right now, there's really nothing in there that would guide us towards that end. And the thing that we're finding is that more things come our way that we have to do, then something else is going to have to slip.
I guess, just in terms of a real estate person in the city, saying, yeah, this is underutilized property here, it's got a building that's going to get demolished. Just start to identify prospects, and maybe the streetscape committee or somebody could see how that fits into street improvements and all that. It just seems like property value is only going up, and it seems like we're missing this. It seems
Or
like
property that you already own. Like there's this whole big lot on Cherokee that's just nothing, and it kind of divides like where South French Broad ends, and then kind of Biltmore Hospitals area begins, and it's city owned. And
You mean Choctaw?
Choctaw, sorry. But that's right there at the bottom of the South Slope. It could make a park. There's lots of.
Well, for an interim use, there's also plans for greenway through there and all that. And it's difficult to say that you would set aside a piece of land for parking. I don't think there's a big policy on council right now to do that.
Well, I think he was saying park or green, like multiple possibilities or potential, just identifying.
Well, I think bringing it back to the sub-area planning for that area would look at anticipated growth. It would look at what the yield of private development potentially could be under the UDO and under the current zoning. So you know what the numbers add up to and what the demand may potentially be.
Yeah.
Then you're looking for placeholders.
It's just a matter if you can't necessarily buy property, then look at what you already have to, define potential.
Well, let's not forget the 2025 plan that actually identified where most of the parking decks were built today. That was done in the 80s.
And we're getting ready to, of course, it'll be 18 months or so, we will be working on another comprehensive plan. So those will be identified, but I hear what Rebecca's saying, you don't want to miss the opportunities that are out there now. But I would tell you, as a member of the group, there's not a tremendous amount of support for parking on council right at the moment. There's more of an intermodal approach. There's more as far far as putting CIP dollars ahead, that more thought given to sidewalks and greenways than there are parking. I will be bringing it up.
Well,
I think it's very important.
and this goes back to some comments last year. Given the choice of putting $2 million into an art museum or putting $2 million into a parking solution, I think this downtown commission would have had a very different recommendation. And we need to address that, because this is what the commission is for, is to offer up recommendations to council. And if council is not thinking about this right now, parking is a top issue. I said that yesterday for the South Slope and for the rest of downtown.
Well, there were a good many council members in there, and I think the more that is said, the more that's going to resonate. That the art museum, and there was not an either or on that. Quite frankly, we had no choice. That and y'all were purview to that whole thing as it unfolded. That building has to be maintained. The monies that were set aside in CIP budget was not. It was probably a poor choice of words. The realities were the heating and cooling system, the PAC, in some certain areas. We're going to come to those dollars. That was our contribution. That's last in money. That's not first in. That is not something that's the art museum's going to be building off of. It's something to maintain that place building. That needs to be said. There was not an either or in that case.
Okay, and so, you know, the whole parking discussion, again, is something that we need to have more conversation on.
I have one more question for Ken,
Okay,
though.
yeah.
And I'm sorry to take your time, but we only kept you here an hour.
That's right.
And I knew that this was going to be a long conversation. Are there plans to put parking meters on the South Slope? And are there plans to put parking meters in other parts of the city, namely Biltmore Village, the River District, and the West Asheville community?
When you say are there plans, I don't have any definitive plans that say that I want to go down to the South Slope and put in 100 meters and this is how I'm going to fund it. There are no plans like that. Right now, the only place that we have meters approved by council is in the Central Business District. We are now doing a parking study on West Asheville, Haywood Road corridor.
Right.
And through that, there will be a series of recommendations coming out of that report that kind of ties in with their 10-year vision plan. So there could be parking meters out on Haywood Road at some point in time. I would say that I would envision, and hopefully, while I'm still with the city, that there probably will be parking meters on the South Slope and in other areas, River Arts District, Biltmore Village, and all. Now, and again, I think that opens up the thing. I wouldn't sit here and say that the hourly rate would be the same.
No.
Or the maximum time would be the same. For example, in Biltmore Village, it might be more conducive that you have a longer max because you want people to park once, go to several stores and or restaurants and then leave. So yes, those things, you know, are areas that could definitely be targeted, but we don't have any definitive plans to try to work out how we would do it and how much it would cost.
I think it's something you should look at, because there's definitely a concern in the downtown business community where all the pay for parking is, that the revenues that are coming out of the downtown community would be funding parking solutions in other areas of the city without those areas bearing the cost as well. Specifically, the river would be one. If there's going to be a parking deck down there, we're going to be funding the bulk of that out of the central business district.
One last item, can I encourage you to be diligent about the crosswalk, pedestrian crosswalk signage on Lexington. There's a crosswalk mid-block, and on Broadway, there's a mid-block crossing. It's always confusing whether the cars are supposed to stop or not. I think they are supposed to stop, but they don't always know it. So it seems like we need more signage or clear striping or whatever. You know the two places.
Yes, sir.
It's come up several times. And
Okay.
And
in the walkability, I think Byron did a walkability study and nothing's happened.
I request a signal light at Lexington where it changes over at 240 and Broadway. There's not like a signal. And again, it's like, well, should the pedestrians be walking right now and I'm going to yield to them, or I'm not going to take my left? There needs to be a crosswalk signal.
Right at that
We're
one.
talking about pedestrian signal?
Yeah,
Okay.
pedestrian signal at 240 Lexington.
Just north of 240 on Lexington,
Yeah. Like if you were crossing over
where the
240
on-ramp is.
and it turns from Lexington into Broadway. It's- Yeah, it's like a game of chicken between who's taking a left and the pedestrians right there.
Okay.
Taking notes.
I appreciate your time, Ken. Clearly, it's, some of these issues we'll continue to work on this year, and we'll have you back a couple of times.
That's fine, I'll come anytime you need me, and like I say, I want to sit here for a few more minutes, if that's okay. That's
Sure.
listening to,
Yeah, you're not shunned from the room. You can continue to stay.
Sure thing.
All right, let's move forward with the one public issue we've got, which is the update or revised design review for 150 Cox. Alan, can you give us a update?
Thank you. Commissioners,
Oh, just for the record, Jack, because his firm is involved in some way with the development of the property, was going to recuse himself from any discussion.
typically would make a motion and then vote to recuse.
Move to recuse Jack.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're
Yes, we
recused.
Get out of here.
We should recuse him more often. That was easy. Again, you don't have to leave the room.
I have a May date here, probably was April that it came to the Downtown Commission. This is the 150 Cox Avenue project. And as you recall, it was ground level activity here, a garage entrance to the south side of that building, 3 levels of parking in the middle, and then 48 residential units on the top side. The development group has come back and proposed a new plan, and that plan would reduce the parking inside the structure in favor of concentrating to create a mixed-use building. The development team came and met with the design committee, and with some back and forth, of course, we've arrived at a new plan we'll have to present. It's a much simplified proposal, activating the entire street frontage on the ground level. So this would now be another retail or commercial bay, along with the other bay here, main entrance for the residential lobby, and then keeping the same amount of 48 residential units in the proposed building. We're bringing it back to you as a revisit of this amendment to this design review. As you know, parking is not required in the downtown area, and my opinion has always been, we manage downtown, we have an enterprise fund, we have folks on this issue, and it's a healthy tension in the downtown area. Having a parking problem is not the worst problem in the world to have, although it needs to be managed. So we would offer that this to you, it meets, or even in a greater extent meets the intent for key pedestrian streets to activate the whole front, expands that mixed-use component in this building. It's hard for every building to meet everything in every project. This one is actually meeting other goals for the downtown area. So I think that we had some struggle in the past with that other plan of this garage entranceway here, and making sure that space is activated. That is satisfied now. So I appreciate this conversation about parking. I think this project is moving, would move forward and be an addition to downtown as proposed.
Is there are there any questions of staff? Otherwise, I'd like to have the applicant speak shortly, and then we can have discussion. All right, is anybody from the applicant wants to?
Want to or will?
Is inclined to? Offer up a little more information as to where you currently are. Not necessarily a rationale of why, but just where you currently are.
Sure. Can you see that? Can everybody see that?
Sure.
And I do have a bigger rendering if it helps. I don't mind.
Would you put that brick sample maybe in front of the lectern?
Yeah.
Right up here, yeah. So just, yeah,
Does it lean up against?
the lectern. Just put it between the, yeah, just put it between.
Okay.
I'm Brian Kaiser, I'm Managing Director of Tribute Construction, and we've been involved with the owners of this from the beginning, and we'll follow through to lease up and turnover. The short story is, after hearing the feedback, us analyzing market conditions, the owners decided that they needed to reduce the scope. We wanted to have a building that was well received, and we felt like we had a building that was approved but wasn't going to be favorable. So we started spending more time driving around, looking at the landscape, and this is what we came up with. We worked with the design committee and feel that we have something that will last a whole lot longer and blend in better with the South Slope. And that was something that was very important to the owners, and we worked hard and diligently to make this work. The parking, market conditions just don't require it, is what we found in downtown Nashville. That could change, and I'm sure there's possibilities here in the very near future to accommodate some parking. That's part of why we went back. And in addition to the initial comments with our first plan on not having the pedestrian-friendly component along Cox Avenue, with that driveway really limited it, and there were a lot of concerns. We increased our rentable commercial from about 2,500 to 8,600 square feet. Broke it up into several suites. We're going to leave it very vanilla until we get some prospects that we can talk to. And there's actually 49 units in it, not 48. We made a little floor plan tweak. One of the other improvements we made is we had no amenity area in the prior plan. We now have about 1,200 to 1,300 square feet of amenity area, which will be located on the second floor. There'll probably be an on-site fitness center and maybe a business center for the residents as well.
Okay,
Can
very
you
good.
describe those units? Are they one-bedroom, two-bedroom mix, efficiency?
I apologize, I don't have the mix. Do you have?
I do not, but it is 1 and 2.
It is 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Slightly more 1 bedrooms. 2 bedrooms.
And they're still anticipated, at least initially, to be,
Well, there's 48 two-bed, no, that's not right. I'm counting bedrooms, I apologize. There's 16 two-bedrooms.
and they're still anticipated, these are still anticipated to be, at least in the business model right now, apartments, rental apartments. But there was some discussion earlier as there's nothing that precludes them from being converted later on.
That's correct.
Condominium. Okay.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
What are your projected market rates for rent? Just
Um,
a range.
Projected market rates right now are between $1,300 and $2,250.
Square footage?
We have some units, some efficiencies that are 600 square feet up to two-bedroom. The largest two-bedroom is, it's about 1,250 or 1,300 square feet. And let me say that a lot of our proposed rents are what the same owners are getting next door at the Chrysler per rentable square foot.
Are there going to be entrances on the side or the rear of the building for residents?
There will be, there's stair towers that exit out both on Banks Avenue and then in between this project and Chrysler. We haven't really discussed if there's be entrances and exits. We want to flow all the traffic through Cox Avenue. There'll be there'll be a lobby and foyer area that goes to the elevator there.
There wasn't I know we talked at the design meeting of what the perimeter changes might be from a site plan standpoint, with going to commercial, of course, 2 garage entrances, the one on the north side and the one on Cox go away, and sidewalks continue through. There was some continued discussion on, what's the street to the north? On Banks, as to the conditions of the width of the sidewalk and streets. Has that been resolved?
Yes, I believe that, short of final TRC,
Right.
I believe that everybody is on board with what we've done. Mark Wilson, the plan planner, I'll let him speak to that because I know he's had conversations with transportation.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in the adjustments of getting this building onto the site, we have spoken about before about an 8-foot sidewalk on Banks, and the way it worked out is we've actually got a 9-foot now with a, I've got dimensions here. 7.5 foot, a 9-foot walk, 7.5 foot parallel, 22-foot drive lane, which is what the streets department wanted. And room enough for a 7-foot future parallel spot adjacent to it in front of Swindle.
The reason I asked as part of the design review sort of amendment is that the building changes have sidewalk changes, which are part of what our purview is.
Sure. Let me also add that now that we've eliminated the 2 driveways, we have created 3 additional on-street parking spaces.
Can you talk about materials now, maybe?
Sure. So we actually kept the brick and we kept all the masonry the same. We had stucco proposed above the water table on the 4th floor from levels 5 through 8.
Right.
And we previously had paint samples while we were doing paint stucco. We decided that with the lead tinted glass, we're actually going to change the storefront. We proposed the bronze so it matched with the screening we were doing on the parking deck. We really want to go with the green. And this is a green product we used on a rehab down in Wilmington 3 years ago, the green window. We really like to stand out of the green and think that it is era appropriate as well. But it's brick, and this is, I had this conversation before, and I apologize, it's Aristocrat. But it is, it's
a manufactured
material.
material.
Yeah, not a faux stone, it's a manufactured.
And that's the base material?
That is the base material.
And it's in a much larger size than the brick?
That's correct, 18 to 24, or 16 to 18.
And then through the detailing on the at the top levels, at the cornice and the cap, you're still maintaining the base midpoint cap that we talked about. So, okay.
Correct.
Do you have other views? Sides?
Not in color. What was sent around were black and whites at the other sides of the building.
I'd like this lull to commend the team for being flexible and creative in your adjustments to all the variables that you're dealing with. I think, again, the building got better, in my opinion. So I appreciate it. I hope you guys feel it got better as well.
We did. We thank you.
Yeah, to follow up on that point, if you remember correctly for the rest of the commissioners, one of the issues that the design committee struggled with the applicant were an issue that we're going to continue to have downtown as surface area is limited and people either feel or don't feel that the market drives the requirement for parking is just like at the AC Hotel, parking above the street and occupying mid-level portions of a structure. And the difficulties that we had on the previous application, although I think the resolution was good, was still how to disguise those, and that's going to be a continuing effort that we're going to have to look at and be cognizant of. I think as well that from a design standpoint, the direction that the building has taken and drastically represented differently than what the previous approvals were is much more conducive to its context of what's happening at the Chrysler building next door, or the Story building, whatever it is, and more reminiscent of the South Slope history in general. Not that we're trying to set a precedent for future applicants coming in to create this sort of monochromatic or monotonous development pattern in the South Slope. But I recognize the development issues and the financial side of it as well, what you're trying to do. So the design committee, I think, feels good that this came back to the commission and are positive about the changes that are being proposed.
I just have 2 design geeky comments, just throwing it into the pot. The openings at the ground level in the design guidelines, we have some guidelines about how a storefront should, like an opening at the base of the building, the storefront should come all the way down to the sidewalk instead of being a hole punch. So there's 4 openings at the street level that are not doorways. I suggest that you eliminate the masonry between the sidewalk and the window and just run the storefront down. And that's in the guidelines. And it actually is a practical thing. It allows you to create a doorway there later. So I'd offer that. So that's 4 locations. And it also gets rid of an awkward windowsill as well. And then the canopy over the entrance in the middle. It looks a little bland. We have a great, I think we talked about this, great metalworking scene here. So please reach out to some metalworkers and maybe come up with something other than this anodized board and batten canopy there. And there's room to do something, economical and interesting.
It's hard to tell in this rendering, but it is actually proposed to be metal, and we really do want to find something appropriate but a little funky at the same time.
There you go, funky.
On the 4 windows, with that cross slope there, I really got to think about constructability and making sure that we don't create a water intrusion problem, but I do clearly remember that conversation from the last one as well.
It's all over town. People, you can just put a Hardy's panel there or something. I mean, just, yeah.
Look at a way to represent.
Sure.
That it comes to the ground, recognizing that the floor level inside is higher. The last thing we want to create is a little bit of the scenario that we have at the legal building, where you look in the windows and halfway up the windows is a floor level with a railing on it. Any other questions of the applicant?
I'll make a motion that we approve, we haven't done these in a long time. Based on materials presented, building skin materials presented, the color rendering presented, and the 4 other views of the building as presented by the applicant.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any other questions or comments or discussions about the design aspects of this, since this is design review?
I have a comment. Had 2 property managers email me when they saw this on the agenda, and they were basically saying that they struggled to lease their spaces unless they have 1 to 2 parking spaces. Where do these folks, where are they going to park? Do you have any idea of what's your plan?
I do, and I don't know why. I want to be respectful of your question. I don't know that it's appropriate for us to bring it up at the moment. We've got some other projects that we've been working with Alan and staff on, and we're not far enough along that I'm ready to commit to what the owners want to do and what the city's agreeable to. But understand that we are a major stakeholder in South Slope, and we are working to address our own residents' issues. We've also had several conversations with the city about viability of looking at a joint venture or some form of cost sharing for a parking structure.
I would certainly like to see something like that work out, because my opinion is, for what it's worth, I was around when the UDO was being written. I feel like that we left the parking component out intentionally because we were trying to develop what we had done. And it made a lot of sense. But now the South Slope is a very changed area from what we were dealing with then. I regret very much seeing that parking structure department go away from the building. That's not what we're here to talk about this morning. But I think we see this come back and back and back. There will be people building down there that have less ability to do good things, less ability to make partnerships. So I think it's something this commission really needs to make a decision about moving forward and do planning, that there be some provision for parking down there. Because everybody's not going to build a beautiful building that, to me, unless, I would hate to pay that kind of rent, and I expect that people would pay that kind of rent, but the bulk of them are going to have cars. I'm not sure that I would want to rent without knowing that I've got a place to put that car. So I think we need to address this. This is not the time to do it.
Yeah.
We're ready to take that away.
We certainly understand and appreciate luxury living. that this is not New York, it's not Chicago, and in the South, we like having our vehicles very, very close to us so we can get them and we can go. We're used to it. So we understand and recognize that, and we're trying to figure out how to best accommodate our residents and our business.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the project. I think adding more residential units on the south slope is a very positive thing. But I am concerned not just about the parking, as we've talked about before, and I don't think it's primarily your role to address that. I think it is a joint issue for our city and our other business owners to figure out what are we going to do to address parking on the south slope. One of the concerns I have, though, is from a financial perspective, and I know we're not talking affordable housing, we're not talking how do you charge rents, but that rent range gives me pause, because frankly, many of the professionals I work with could not afford to live there, and I couldn't afford to live there. And that just makes me worry about what are we trying to encourage on the south sloping, and are you going to be able to capture those rates? I hope you are. I just hope we also have a broader diversity of professionals down there and residents as well.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Adrian, and also the respect for their internal business model and decisions of marketing and how they think they can go forward with this. I would hope that they take that into consideration, as well as Jan's comments about, as we talked earlier, strategically encouraging people to look at partnerships in this area as it continues to grow. And I think as we go forward this year and talk about parking and transportation and bikeways and greenways in the downtown areas, of whether there is a methodology and a rationale for modifications to the UDO parking requirements in specific areas, similar to what we were talking about in terms of paid parking, is it different in different quadrants of the city? Those are all factors I think we need to talk about. I mean, there are methods to do that. There are a lot of examples to do that, some of which aren't applicable in the state of North Carolina, but others are, and we move forward. But to that end, unless there are any specific comments about this, we have a motion to approve the revised design review application for 150 Cox. Given the representations that have been made in the discussion today, we have a second for that. If we could call the vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Again, we appreciate working with the commission and with the staff and with the design group and the changes you made.
We appreciate it too, and we look forward to seeing you down here very soon.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to have Jack step back, or?
No, I think we represent the fact that Jack is now back at the table. I'm not sure it requires a motion. Okay, if we could move on to public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment about any particular issue that we talked about today or something else?
I have one question for you all. On our original agenda for last Friday, we had the annual report, and I
had it as
forgot to put it on this agenda. And I don't know if you don't have to take a formal vote on it. If you want to, you can, or if you all just want to tell me, yeah, that's fine, keep going.
Well, we typically haven't in the past, at least
Okay.
since I've been here
Okay.
and doing it. But to that level, I mean, what we missed here was sort of, non-agenda items or commissioner items on the agenda. And that was one of them that I had, is that there was a draft of the annual report to council that Sasha has taken the lead on, and I've responded to it. There were a number of issues that are identified as issues for 2015 to look at, and based on the various emails and our discussions that have gone around, in addition to the four that were identified as future work items for this commission for 2015, I would like to amend or add to that, looking at several items. One, follow up to the downtown mission, the downtown master plan, identification of specific area plans or sub-area plans within the downtown core and issues associated with those. one of which is looking at parking and transportation and greenway elements in each of those quadrants. One, a discussion of potentially other economic incentives for development downtown that might drive the viability and sustainability of downtown this year. And which may talk about affordability or density incentives or parking, all tied together. And then the other was to focus as the city goes forward in updating its, I forget if it's the 2005 or 2010 homeless initiatives plan that's about to.
The consolidated plan for
Yeah.
federal money, is that what you mean?
No, there's a
The 10-year plan to end.
10-year plan to end homelessness, chronic homelessness, which is coming up for a review starting in the next 30 days, I think. That we be involved a little bit in those discussions as they relate to the downtown area. So that.
We want a motion to amend the report.
Can I get a clarification? The small area plans would be like, we've talked about Ashland Avenue, kind of changing from a suburban street to an urban street. That small area plan would look at that.
Well, yeah, the small area plan would look, as an example, a small area plan or a specific area plan would look at a defined area, like South Slope.
And I would say, I would just speak to that in that strategy 3, which I've always thought of as like the more longer range planning chapter of the downtown master plan speaks specifically
It
to
has that.
And I did, anybody who sent me changes, I made them. So
Okay.
the Cox and Ashland thing is on there. But
Yeah, I'm not sure that it takes a motion, but the point would be if there are other issues that we need to be added to 2015, that they be included in the annual report. And whether we state them now or we follow up in
yeah, this
emails
is
to
not a binding
Sasha.
agreement, if you all want to make a better list at some point, that's fine.
Yeah, we're
Just
trying
kind
to
of a
get this to council prior to their retreat on the 30th.
Is this the appropriate place to ask for some policy ordinance changes with the parking?
Unless you all have discussed it and like kind of are in agreement.
Yeah, I just added it as a specific item that we're going to be looking at this year. It's parking policies as they relate to physical planning, economic development.
I almost feel like it may be worth us convening a parking subcommittee to look at the parking study from 2010, see if that's something we need to do again, hear from Ken in a more detailed environment instead of, just 1 hour. I think we still had lingering questions about parking issues in downtown.
Well, and if the UDO requirements were written at a time when we were trying to invite a lot of development and revitalization, and now a lot of that's
I think it would be-
evolved.
I think it'd be good to have a subcommittee. This is not going to go for council in the retreat period and all of a sudden come out with its own chapter.
Right.
So I think that incorporating it into the report that we consider this and then develop this subcommittee would be a really good plan, because I'll bring it up. And also I want to offer, and Bruce is aware of this, the rest of you that were not there may not be, but this year's retreat will have the opportunity for input from the public. There'll be more opportunity even than last year. Last year was the first time we've ever really done that. And so we offered that the boards and commissions will be particularly listened to. So I suspect Bruce and Michael or anyone who wants to come is welcome to come. It's on the 30th. It's an all-day deal. The agenda will be published tentatively, probably about early afternoon or late morning when that opportunity comes up. But I think it's something we should be talking about, but I'm not sure that it's terribly urgent. We know that before we go into that retreat. That's a policy issue that should be brought up.
Yeah, I think going into the retreat, the key thing is it being identified from the downtown commission, that it's an item that we're clearly going to be looking at in a more focused manner this year and passing on recommendations up the chain to council for consideration.
I would just like to comment that yesterday at the State of Downtown Luncheon, we said some of our top issues for 2015 were parking, cleanliness, safety, and an emerging issue of noise. Parking has gotten a lot of conversation today, and I think we're going to continue that conversation over the coming months. But back in November, I had requested 3 reports on parking, cleanliness, and safety. I hope next month that we hear from our streets division on how the Rivertop contract is performing and what can we do to do more, or do we need to even do more? Is it meeting our expectations? But from a safety perspective too, I'd like to hear the report next month of how is our downtown patrol going to be staffed moving forward? Are they going to continue to be a part of Charlie District? Will they have the resources necessary for this summer when in 2015 we're the top destination for America? That with the influx of people coming in, are we going to have an adequate presence of police officers?
It's all because of the river.
So we're not sketchy.
I think it would be probably helpful along those lines when it comes to public safety. Of course, recognize that we have an interim chief getting ready to have another interim chief that will really be putting feet on the ground. Might be a great time to have a meeting with him. Be happy to, from the standpoint of the Public Safety Committee of Council, arrange that. I'm not sure until a permanent full-time chief comes that they will make terrible reassignments as far as districts or big concept. It's going to be up to the new chief. I don't think an interim chief is going to want to change that dramatically. But I think it's a good time with this interim to sit down and talk to them about the concerns we have with them.
And we shared all that with our outgoing chief, and that needs to be brought to the interim and to the new chief, so a meeting would be great.
I think reinforcing that in a very simple way. Hearing that and being part of that process will be good. And, Greg Schuler couldn't make it today, but he's ready to give us an update both on the cleaning progress, the wins and losses there, as well as he's been pretty good about giving us an update and anticipating on the accessibility work that they're doing on sidewalk repairs and the progress they're making there. So
He just can't come in February, so Chad Bandy, who's here today, who's the streets director, who will be here in
Okay.
February, but prepared to do that. So we've been in ongoing conversations with them about it.
Any other new? Well, I've got a couple of things. Unless somebody else. There's the annual report we just talked about. We'll make those additions and expand upon 2015 and pass that along. Jan referred to the council retreat, working on the strategic operating plan coming up at the end of this month. I think we sent around to all the commission members, maybe I did, their goals and action items from last year that are being revisited. Part of what Jan was referring to was they're hoping to start on an annual basis, which they did this year, was a gathering of all the boards and commissions, chairs, to try and facilitate more cross-communication amongst the various commissions and also a clearer understanding of the operations of commissions relative to each other and relative to council and how the city operates and how to pass along information. So that was a good discussion. It was the first discussion moving along. And what they had as part of that is everyone in attendance, both staff, council, and commission or board chairs, went through the sticker exercise of hanging up the goals for the strategic operating plan and people indicating where they see for this next year the priorities being and which of those. So if we can get additional comments through staff passed up to Kathy Ball, then that'll be part of the discussion on the 30th the council will have. And I would encourage anybody that has the time and effort to go to that as well on this commission. The last thing I have is a quick update on the Haywood parcel, which goes partly to this parking discussion. Is there were, of the RFPs that went out for a market analysis, feasibility analysis for redevelopment of that parcel and highest and best use. There were two firms that were shortlisted, and they've been going through an analysis of the comparables between the two. They're completely different approaches to the project that they've proposed, even though the underlying framework of both of them is very similar, because it was driven by the city's RFP that went out. Initial conversations were had with those two groups and presentations, which I participated in a couple of weeks ago. Comments of the participants in that have gone to community development and to Sam Powers and Jeff and their group. They're formulating questions and responses back to those two participants, and we'll see where that goes, but we'll get Sam to give us an update in February as well on the next steps going forward with that. Any other commissioner issues? New commissioner?
Alan, I just wanted to mention the new substations that are being proposed by Duke Power that may not rise to the level of commission, but when they start to plan for the one that's in the central business district, I would like to be notified. I'd like to be able to have some idea of what they're planning to do on the Hilliard one. That's the one that's basically the only one in the central business district. And I had heard that they were considering doing away with the substation behind the Civic Center, but that's not been validated.
Right, my understanding is the one at Hilliard and Ashland is a few years down the road, but we are all ears to the track to kind of get more information on that.
Yeah, strategically, Duke is looking at acquisition and land banking for future development, including the one down by Mission, the parcel they bought down there, and the Hilliard one. So
I'm keenly interested too, is like how they interact with the street and how they don't take away from the rest of our streetscape and our other efforts we're trying to do to enliven a pedestrian environment. So
yeah,
we'll bring it around when we know something.
I saw Jason Walls last week and asked him about what their future plans were, and they're very constrained by what they can do as far as this. It's a large structure and it's not pretty. There's not a lot that they can do to make it pretty. They can't mask it with a facade or anything. So I think they're struggling with what the future plans are going to be and when those are going to roll out. But I agree with Byron. It'd be nice to know if we're going to put Behemoth right there on Hilliard or Mission. What can we do to make it look better or fit it into the landscape?
and also know in some instances, the parcels they've acquired are, because of the boundaries of the parcels, are much larger than what their actual needs are. And so, again, in a public-private partnership situation, looking at if they buy 2 acres, they really need an acre, do they really need a half acre, where those facilities are located, how they're accessed, any conversation we can have with them. I know they're having conversations with the housing authority on some parcels that are adjacent to housing authority property, and having those same level of issues being talked about. So.
Along the same lines, do we have any kind of update on the underground utilities for the South Slope? And I know that's in the CIP budget and something that's, I believe, is being currently worked on. I've seen some work by Haynes along Lexington Avenue.
I don't have an update on that, I'm sorry.
Could you just look into that and see where we are? Not an agenda item for next time, just what's the progress there?
Okay. Public Works may have some insight on things that are being looked at that point in time too. So. Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn in that case?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passed. All those opposed? Move 0.